Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I'm your host, Nelia Hutt. I am so excited to have met a new, wonderful friend. Her name is Dr. Alison J Kay. Welcome to the show. How are you, Dr. Alison?
Hi, Nelia. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I feel this connection with you already. We've just met over the screen, so a warm welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I just want to dive right in there and let you all know a little bit about this, our featured guest today. So Dr. Alison J Kay has secrets that no one else uses to upgrade, inspire, and disrupt old paradigms within her community and the collective. And this is what I'm talking about. So this is what we need, okay? She is an award-winning #1 international best-selling author and the founder of the Vibrational UPgrade System. She is an experienced subtle energies practitioner and natural healer with a holistic approach toward helping others thrive in mind, body, and spirit. This is reinforced by her 10 years in Asia, studying subtle energies and ancient wisdom. Within over 20 years, working and teaching yoga, meditation, energy medicine, mind-body fitness, longevity, and holistic health, with a specialized focus on the Chakra System. Dr. Alison brings a unique perspective that facilitates massive change. And this right here is why I have invited her to speak to you guys today. This show is all about how we can take care of ourselves, how we can let our emotions out and not suppress feelings, because all my listeners know that that is something that has happened to me. And I lost 12 years of my life. And living is not really living when you're suppressing all of these feelings. And this whole show, Giving Starts With You, is about, knowing that we're important enough, knowing to love ourselves enough so that we can be the best we can be, the happiest we can be, and try to find that. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Dr. Alison, because I think you're going to teach me a lot today. And I think the audience is really going to welcome you. So thank you again for being here. I'm a chatter, so I'm sorry for that long introduction, but I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy. Our missions align really sweetly. And so I'm excited to help serve your community. And I love what you said about, I don't love that you said I lost 12 years of my life. But I do love that you brought that up, because when we walk around with suppressed emotions, and I don't mean just trauma, I mean, where we tend to be more in our intellect and rely on that as our superpower to get us our success, and we don't cultivate the space to hear our emotional body, and we don't feel safe because of certain emotions we just don't want to feel. So we keep ourselves busy, empowering through and always with other people, and not doing the self-care, not creating the space where we would be alone to hear those. It ends up in our tissues. It ends up in our cells. I don't honestly remember if in that version of my bio it talks about me being a specialist through the Chakra System, which is a science. My yoga teacher training and certification is in India. I lived amongst the traditional Chinese for 10 years, just totally exploring holistic health and wellness and consciousness. And The chakra column is ancient science, and each chakra is like a urban center, so to speak, where the mind, the body, and the spirit all intersects, and there's 7 main ones. So I'm getting into the science of the subtle energy system. And before I do that, I returned from the decade in Asia with the mission of, man, if people in the West, if we only had an emphasis in understanding of the subtle energy system in our consciousness and how it worked, there would be so much less suffering and so much more thriving. And my secondary mission is to professionalize the field of energy medicine in the study of consciousness. So with that having been said, I'm doing that right now, because our chakras, if it's where the mind, body, and spirit intersect, and we have one at the top of our head and one in between our eyebrows and one at our throat, one at our heart, one at our upper belly, abdomen, that's the solar plexus, one at our lower belly, the sacral, lower back, and then the root at our tailbone. The second one there in the lower belly is so every chakra covers an area of life, a domain of life, if you will, and they all have like a right to them. So the first chakra is totally healthy if we are on all levels of consciousness feeling like we have the right to be here. So what I've seen disrupt that is if somebody's been neglected in ages 0 to 8, if somebody's been rejected from ages 0 to 8, if there's been sexual abuse, obviously they don't feel safe, there's invasion. So all of that can really have a malformed root chakra. And so people don't tend to embody that, and they don't tend to go down all the way to that area of their body. They close off or block it. So there could be hiatal hernias, or groinal hernias, pardon me. There could be, so the root chakra, if every chakra is the intersection of mind, body, and spirit, and covers a certain domain of life for consciousness and spirit, it also correlates to that part of the body. So the root, being at the tailbone, covers tailbone down to tips of toes. So a lot of the times there will be people not rooted, so they'll have leg problems because it's supposed to turn. A chakra means wheel from Sanskrit into English. So it's supposed to be turning. And when we have certain beliefs at what I call the back of the house consciousness, the unconscious, so we don't consciously hear the thoughts, or the subconscious. So it's sub is under, un is not, those two prefixes, meaning it's consciousness we don't hear. It's not conscious. It's either un or sub. And so traumas go, for example, into the subconscious because we can't consciously feel the trauma. It's too much. So it has to go right into the subconscious. My first degree, by the way, or first major in college was psychology. And I later taught AP Psych. So there's some Western foundational stuff in here too. So the root chakra, if every chakra governs an area of life and it's meant to turn the vital life force energy when it's clear and open, then that life force energy, or chi as in qigong, which I also teach, or prana, which is what we call it in yoga, or ki as in reiki, universal life force energy, is turning in that area, then the legs from the tailbone down, if we're talking about the root chakra, would have all that fresh vital life force energy circulating. A traditional Chinese medical tenet is where chi goes, or energy, where energy goes, blood follows. That's why they work with the chi in acupuncture to unblock it before they work physical. Like when you're having liver issues, they're not necessarily putting a needle right in the area of the abdomen where the liver is. Right? So this is in part what we're talking about. I mean, there's all these side routes and highways and alternative routes that all lead into the chakras, but the chakras are the major urban centers. So those meridians that you seem to understand, or in yoga, we call them nadis, and there's a whole lot more identified in yoga where the energy travels between chakras. In traditional Chinese medicine, there's only 13 main ones, but the energy travels in between these major centers. So if it's healthy and open, then it's turning that vital life force energy. So there will be flourishing, there'll be vital life in that area of life, in the mind, at all levels of consciousness, in the body. So the hormones too. So for example, the throat chakra's hormones of the thyroid, and every major endocrine gland is associated with one of the hormonal glands. And along the center, along the spinal column, which is where the back of the chakra column is, if you will, it's been understood when Candace Pert was studying for a pharmaceutical company. She was a biologist doing research for an antidepressant. for a pharmaceutical company. She knew about the chakra column, God bless her. And she realized that she was looking along the spinal column where the majority of neuroreceptors were that were receiving messaging from the brain, the neurotransmitters in the brain. The biggest gathering of neuroreceptors were where each chakra is known to be along the spinal column. So that's our two main communication systems: electricity for the central nervous system and chemical for the hormonal system. So this is all about the body. It's not just about consciousness or at all about spirituality. So if my root chakra is blocked from the tailbone down, I'll likely have either leg issues or knee issues. If my throat chakra is blocked, another way to think of it is preventative. This is like preventative 501, not instead of like a college 101 course. This is more like 501. Let's say two people are in a car accident and both have the exact same impact, they're at the same speed, same car, same posture, everything's the same. One of them has a blocked throat chakra, one of them has an open, turning, flourishing throat chakra. The one with blocked throat chakra does not have that buoyancy there. So they're more likely to end up with a whiplash. The one with the open light chakra with the turning life force energy has that buoyancy there, invisible as it may be, still there, has that buoyancy there, and they're less likely to end up with whiplash. That's a personal example for me, for example. So when we suppress our emotions, that's the sacral chakra, that's the lower abdomen. So it correlates to, for example, constipation. So it doesn't mean you want to go take laxatives. You want to do the holistic work so that you really heal the issue, going beyond even what acupuncture can do. Energy medicine, the work that I do, it's a combination of energy medicine to get the light in there, to break up the density, the darkness, the shadow that's been suppressed, bring it up to the surface. And then I bring in my background in meditation to work with that applied mindfulness as a old submerged block has more and more light. It comes to the surface of the conscious mind. And then I come in with the necessary intuitive coaching to help a person now take ownership over a new behavior. Now that they're able to be mindful or conscious of it, because we've gotten it out of the buried state to the conscious state. Now, what do they do with it in order to have a new behavior? So when we suppress our emotions for whatever reasons, they're locked down in our body, and they end up one of the statements in my training of my students in Vibrational UPgrade System who are getting certified to become practitioners of this is emotions buried alive never die.
Yeah, that's a big one. First of all, thank you for your explanation, because I get what you're saying. Like, you know, it's been explained to me before and I didn't quite understand it the way that you've just explained it. So first of all, thank you very much. I have a personal question, but I have a couple of other questions too. So personal question. So when I was in the middle of my grief and suppressing all my feelings, I had 6 months of my life in that time where I felt like I was being choked from behind. So I would constantly turn around, and I haven't said this on the show yet, but I would constantly turn around and like think there was somebody, you know, just behind. I'd be like, stop, you know, and nobody would be behind me. And I felt like I couldn't swallow. I couldn't breathe. Like it was literally felt like somebody had our hands around me choking. And, you know, did all the tests. Everything was fine. There was nothing physically wrong with me, you know.
Well, I do.
What? Yeah. What do you say to that? Because I've always wondered, is that ever going to come back? Like, what happened? Because it was terrible. It felt honestly like I was like, the breath was just, my throat was so tight, like the breath was just being sucked out. You know, I couldn't swallow, couldn't eat. Why does that happen?
What did your dad die of?
Cancer.
Of the what?
Liver.
Was he on oxygen at the end?
No. But
liver, yeah, go ahead. But
yeah, he wasn't on oxygen, but a lot of my difficulty in expressing the feelings were not that he had passed away, but that he is all the suffering. And I felt like this big anxiety. It was all the suffering and all the pain leading up to it. And I just couldn't breathe.
So it's yours. Okay. I'm ruling out, I'm doing a symptomatic check and I'm ruling things out. That's why I'm asking the questions I'm asking. So the liver, according to Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, stores anger. But the liver is also somewhat correlated to the solar plexus chakra. So there's a bunch, I'm not going to diagnose your dad, but what I'm talking through is the possibility of you absorbing, so to speak, wanting to take his suffering away. And so you're having some symptoms either mirroring his, or once he's passed, he helps you feel he could have been, nothing I've said so far is a match. As I say it, I'm checking the intuitive match and it's not.
And I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but something I really wanted to ask you.
Elliot, it's okay. I mean, you're putting out this podcast. It's a service to others. I typically, or if not typically, frequently tell the host that you're the one in the receiving positioning, receiving the healing. What comes through me most of the time intuitively is for the host first and foremost, and then for their audience. So you're doing a show about self-care. You let yourself, with this service you're giving, ask a question on behalf of yourself. If you have an expert who you want to ask a question to, by God, you have every right to. So another thing that I checked, it's okay, I'm used to being put on the spot as you said it, and working on the fly, was he behind you, trying to get your attention once he passed? No, none of it. This is yours. And so what I understand is that this is gonna maybe sound a little bit out there, but it is what I get intuitively. There is usually our family members, the intimate family members and the spouses we marry and the kids we produce, if we do, are karmically contracted with us, and we've had many lifetimes. From everything I've learned about karma, and I've spent years and tens of thousands of dollars studying how to clear karma because it's persnickety. And it seems like your dad and you had another lifetime, at least one, where you couldn't voice trauma that was related to something going on with him, the two of you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this lifetime between 2012 and 2032 is our cleansing time. It's our spiritual awakening time. My second book subtitle, because my publisher knows what I'm up to for my mission, he said you have to include. So Vibrational UPgrade Conspiracy for Your Bliss is the main title. The subtitle is Easing Humanity's Evolutionary Transition. I think that's what it is. You get the picture. But this is considered our greatest evolutionary leap ever. And so all of the heavier stuff, whether it's a bank or an entire segment of society like government or politics or banking or education or healthcare, and in interpersonal relationships where there's been misalignment, abuse of power, control issues, suppression issues, that's all coming to the surface. It's why our earth in part, whilst we can point to the scientific factors, that's why our earth in part is screaming out in pain as well. Everything, including our earth, has consciousness, and it's all needing to be cleansed to a lighter standard. So like around 2012, I started seeing loads of people coming to me asking, why do I have these three crises happening all at once? People who were a bit sooner than that were in 2010. But it seemed like if they weren't proactively on their path, evolving their soul, knowing they're a soul in a human body, having a human experience, but coming at it from the perspective of that mountaintop rather than materialism only. If they weren't doing it proactively, then there were crises needed, it seems, and it's still the same for like COVID, to jar people out of the egoic or ego mind, as we call it in meditation. So it's the mind, the normal functioning of the mind attached to the personality level of self. Ego mind is the term for meditation. So to crack the shell that the ego mind has on its control over I own life, instead of it being from the soul or the heart's perspective, crises have been needed to crack a lot of people open and to crack a lot of organizations and structures globally open. So voicing this fifth chakra is absolutely key. We have always called the third chakra, the solar plexus, the power center. Starting around 2015, 16, I started to understand that the throat chakra is actually now coming online as the second power center, equal to the third, which is for thousands of years been considered the power center of the chakra column, because there's the whole first level in the throat chakra, which is the fifth, of communication. Do you feel heard? Do you have an easy time expressing yourself? Nobody has an easy time expressing themselves, but you do it nonetheless. Do you lie? Do you get lied to? Do you, are you aligned with integrity in your communication? So all of that's the first level. Whole second, what I consider the second level now in this new paradigm, this new era, is choice and creativity. So have you heard the term co-creator?
Yes. I don't know.
In yoga, let me help. In yoga, for example, it means to yoke with. Yoga is a Sanskrit term like chakra. Into English, it means to yoke with, to join with. And it's implying to join at this chakra, the crown, with my higher self. You could say soul or spirit. We don't need to splice it up that much. Whatever framing is best for you to understand, go with it. And then above the crown chakra, if I advance more, I'm yoking then with the divine increasingly. So what I understand about this new time, and I had a radio show myself weekly for 2.5 years. Voice America asked me to do a radio show about the Mayan galactic alignment on December 21st, 2012. I had been doing nothing publicly facing in my business at the time to make them ask me that, other than taking people on private VIP trips to the Mayan ruins, because I'm in Florida on the West Coast. So it's just a jump across the Gulf of Mexico to the Yucatan, which is great. But nonetheless, I did it for 2.5 years, interviewing experts on this 20-year window. So that's where I'm coming from. And my second book really goes into this, the one that I already named, Vibrational UPgrade Conspiracy for Your Bliss. And so it seems like we're in the second portion. If we take 2012 to 2032, and let's say it's 21 years, just for ease of math. So 2012 plus 7 is 2019. And if you look right on the tail end of 2019, COVID started over in China. But we're now going into 2022. And what I'm seeing, and when people listen to this, it'll probably be 2022, as you said, when we talked earlier before we started. I feel like we're stepping in now to the actual, instead of just the awakening time and the cleansing time, learning how to create this new paradigm. And the main tenet is understanding our power is in our choice. And we are creating our lives from the choices we make. So I'm up to helping people get more conscious, have more consciousness released from the buried state so they can make more conscious choices as we go about co-creating this new era that's much more aligned, much more heart-led, soul and spirit-led. And materialism and spiritualism is balanced. Divine feminine, divine masculine is balanced. It might sound ideal, but that is in fact what's happening. We're moving into an ideal. So the fifth chakra is where courage is. It's where creativity is. It's where choice is. So if you feel restricted or limited in your choice, like you're busy, locked in a job you hate because you feel like you need, if you're in America, to give your family health insurance. So you have to stay in that job. You have no choice. You're going to end up with a tight neck and maybe a closed down thyroid. So, and having difficulty making new choices too. So it's at the holistic metaphysical, not just the physical level, that this all works. So you, with all that understanding, it's possible that your dad and you, before incarnating, worked out a contract with what your soul needed and his soul needed to evolve in this lifetime, beyond like a couple of core patterns, which are called samskaras in Sanskrit, for your soul to evolve. And one of them is you coming into your empowerment with speaking. And so when he died, that triggered those other lifetimes where you've had the trauma and the screaming has tried to release it and it hasn't been able to. And that's why you went 12 years the way you went, because it was really conflagrating before the release, which is typical. Everything tightens before a release. Orgasm, weight training with muscles in the gym,
Right.
everything contracts before releasing. So
I was going to sorry to interrupt you, because I was going to ask you.
Please interrupt.
I was going to ask you, you know, what makes it closed as opposed to open? Like, what can we do? Like, are we shutting it down ourselves, or are these things that are happening to us in our response to it, like our body's response, or is it something that we're creating? Do you know what I mean? Like when things are shutting down. And how do we reopen those things without being an expert, like just the average person, you know, who wants to start to feel better? What's the beginning, you know, something that they can start with just to recognize if whether they're closed or open? Like, how do we get that way is I guess my question.
Well, there's a couple of questions in there, actually. How do we get that way? I'll start with, and then I'll move into the one about like, so how do we open them? So when I run an energy medicine verbal clearing, when it's not a distant, remote, or hands-on session with the light coming through me, and instead the light's going through my presence and my words, as it is now for you all, and I'm not even running a clearing and activation, I list out, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to give you, I don't typically do this on podcasts, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to run a clearing. So can we take 5? There's going to be some moments of silence. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Silence is
okay.
golden.
You're calling this in for yourself. So let me just listen intuitively to see what will help the most. Those of you who are listening to this, if you're driving, you may want to please pull over to the side of the road, because you're going to get spacey, especially if you're new to energy medicine. And if you're not new to energy medicine, you're like, yeah, I can handle it. I still suggest you pull over at least until you're done receiving this and I start chatting with Nelia again, because you're going to be in an expanded state of consciousness, and you're not going to be able to focus quite as much. And so if you're like caring for young ones or old ones too, you might want to just remove yourself, or come back in like 7 minutes when we're done. And then when you are on your own, go back and catch the clearing and activation so that you can be safe. You may want to have your head leaning against something so that if you do knock out, so to speak, your head will not be uncomfortable. So anything and everything that does not allow for you to easily nurture and care for yourself and nourish yourself so you feel safe to thrive, would you be willing to burn up with the flames of transmutation? So you want to say yes out loud.
Yes.
That invites the energy in more. Okay, so any and all karma as appropriate that is in any way hindering or limiting your ability to care for yourself so that you're nourished and feel safe to be here and therefore thrive. Burning up all of that karma as appropriate. Any and all free-floating thoughts and traumas. All imprints from your parents and lineage. All conditioning. across all timelines and lifetimes, all contracts, oaths, vows, swearings, and at all levels of consciousness, beliefs, all of them, judgments, evaluations, expectations, and projections you have that are in any way hindering your ability to engage in self-care and increase feelings of well-being and being nourished, and increased embodiment so that you can be here grounded and thrive, burning it all up now with the flames of transmutation. We're going to go ahead and activate the upgrade now. So any and all latent keys and codes and ancient wisdom within you and inherent talents within you, and any and all blessings and support possible to bring this all into alignment for your highest possibilities and your highest potential to become physically realized. Activating the upgrade now. You're going to want to slowly bring yourself back to a more conscious state. And as you do that, some of what you may have experienced are tingles, goosebumps, heat, flashes of pain when the light or the energy gets through what's been chronically blocked, like musculature. You might feel then the pain as it breaks through the block. You might feel more spaciousness. You might have yawned. You may have felt like you're in a daydream. You may have knocked out and gone to sleep a bit. You may have yawned. You may have heard your tummy gurgle. All of those are really typical. What did you experience, if anything, if you're able to articulate?
Some tingling in my legs and
Yay!
tightness under here, just like a pulling, like
Yep.
just that feeling I get just before I get a headache, but I don't have a headache, you know, just like the tense.
Yeah, it's clearing.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
special. Thank you so much for taking us through that.
Yeah. Again, I don't normally do that on podcasts. It's almost too much when it's people expecting conversation and to then be thrown into.
Perfect.
And I stopped it. Nellie, I wanted to go further with you and I stopped it. There was actually like a raccoon mask I saw it being lifted from here, and then a lot of work here, a lot of work around your hips and thighs. So and that's where it was first. I'm not surprised to hear about the tingling at your leg, at your legs. So one other thing that came in while I was running that on you and all the listeners, because it's not limited by time or space, is because we're working at a subatomic level, so time doesn't matter there. No, it does distance. What was I just saying? There's something else that came through.
What you
was
know.
your fifth chakra. There's a lot of work that wanted to be done there, and I had to stop because I was starting to go to a depth that, because we're not working together in a consistent program, I don't want you to have a healing response, and I'm not there to, move you beyond it, which is how I offer all my offerings, out of integrity, because it is a process. It's not usually one-off.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're working with somebody who is telling you, yeah, just a one-off session or just one round of clearings, or you're on YouTube or you're online and you're getting patches of people's work here and there, you could actually have quicker results if you just work with one person and stay consistent through the process, especially if it's somebody whose work is known to produce results. You with your throat. So I stopped it, but what came through as I was working on your throat chakra was, you doing this podcast is really helpful to move yourself. So you did learn from your lesson. You have known that you had to do something about that weird feeling around your throat. And that's why you've been asking the questions that aren't necessarily helpful. Like, oh, how do I make sure this doesn't come back? Like, you don't want to go in that like almost invitation for it to come back. You're doing the proactive thing instead, where you're evolving. You're using that throat more. And now you're talking about tonight something you've never talked about on your show before. So it's starting to come out, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Trauma and grief are weird too. I want you to know that. I feel like you need to hear this reassurance. I have worked with the emotional spectrum of humans' possible reactions for decades. And grief is the most unpredictable, I want to use an F-bomb here, most effed up range of surprising moment to moment different feelings, reactions, behaviors that just are almost inexplicable, other than to lay it down to grief.
Right.
So
very unpredictable from person to person, and
really unpredictable, but even within ourselves,
right.
It's really, I'm like, I've never felt like this before. And I know other people felt like, what is this feel? I don't know how to deal with it. So just mayhem, really. Grief is just, yeah. So not knowing how to deal with it is reasonable.
I find that many of us, including me, or maybe I'm just speaking for me, but I do feel like a lot of people who struggle in that way, with suppressing their feelings, they think that they're helping themselves. So they think it's a form of protection by keeping quiet, and by not expressing, and I want people to know that can cause so many new problems, honestly, hence the throat closing and the inability of wanting to scream, and like I was feeling like I couldn't exhale for all that time. I just couldn't let my shoulders down and just, holding everything in. And I guess that's where it all manifested, right?
Yeah, I would not just there. Your glutes are used to being tight.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not just being seated. So it's the glutes, it's the thighs. I mean, there was a lot of work on your legs right from the start. The clearing went right there.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could go to my website, vibrationalupgrade.com, and you could look at the chakra series, and there's little sample clearings underneath a list of like self-assessing tools to see which chakras are most blocked. And you can listen to the sample clearings and then get it if you want to. The bundle's the least expensive way and the most effective way.
I was looking at your website actually before we started. It's great. Yeah.
Thanks.
I invite everybody to do that.
Thank you. But I'm saying this because I want you to understand how to move forward. And what you were just saying, the not speaking and the not voicing. I was on a call today with one woman who's been working with me, my beginner, I don't want to say beginner because it's really not beginning, but the initial way people can tend to work with me, because it's like the least expensive introductory way, so to speak, and how we all tend to do that rather than dive right in, or most of us. I tend to dive right in. When I know it's a yes, I dive, and I'll invest for, 4 figures. The majority of people are more like, let me just get my big toe wet. So that level program, this woman has been working with that and my products for a couple of years. And I was on the call with her today because she just joined my signature program that's 3 months long, called Magic Manifestation and Money Flow. And she was saying, and I'm so glad that she finally made the choice to join it. And I gave a really fat sale on Black Friday, and I heard her name in it in order to help her get in it finally, and she did, without my ever saying her name. So I was really proud of her. But one of the things that she was talking about today was how she felt like around speaking, like that, how do I say this? That she was the only one. It was something that you just said, and can you tell me? Yeah, the protection. Thank you for knowing that's exactly what I wanted to say. So we were with walls. I asked her if you could have, so we were talking about trust and the self-trust, trusting the universe, and trusting others. And where she had the biggest blocks that I was sensing was trusting others because of what they've done before. And I was talking about how that's, it's so much, when you hear a person talk, it's so much about what's going on in their head. And so most of the time when somebody's talking with you, including a rejection of a romantic potential, it's their rejection is more about them rejecting the receiving of something grander, rather than you being rejected. Like they can't rise, whether it's receiving more love and having more love, etc. So I was helping her see that the reason why she had built, thank you. Yeah. So then I was helping her see the reason why she had built the walls, though, was because of what other people had in their heads. And it wasn't helping her, because the heart chakra is all about self-care and self-nurturance. And that's, I remember a woman interviewing me for a magazine, I had been back a year and a half or so from Asia, talking about having an abnormal thing on her breast, going to the doctors, nothing showed up, coming to me, wanting to get the holistic opinion. And I told her that my sense, because North American women in particular push so hard, mom, CEO, business owner, wife, just doing it all. Where is the self-care? The breast tissue, if it has the heart chakra spinning, is going to have the fresh life force, vital life force energy going through the breast tissue. If the heart chakra is closed down from lack of self-care, that fresh vital life force energy isn't going through the tissue, hence making a situation more ripe for abnormal growth, or not happy, joy, immunity, resilience.
Yes.
So I find the lack of self-care to be not just something we can talk about as like, oh, it'd be nice if you'd go for a walk in the woods, but like preventative health. And so, but it's also about receiving. So if we want to have like more love in our lives and more support from the universe and manifest easier, if we engage in self-care, if we engage in self-nurturing, that opens the heart chakra to then have more receiving of like all the things you're desiring. So building those walls because of something somebody else had going on in their conscience that they haven't worked with is just so self-destructive. And so when you said like not speaking and instead almost like closing it down, there's so much help out there. There's so many new coaches and so many new healers from during the COVID time. There's got to be somebody out there you resonate with. I'm known to be like when people have been working on an issue for years, I'm the one who gets it for them. I'm quick and efficient. So if you feel resonance with me, check out my website, but I'm not saying this for
yes.
I want you to get yourself support, anyone out there, because it can happen. Like if you're doing it on your own and you're piecing together different YouTubes and blah, 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 how much longer is that going to take? When you could just like, look at how efficient you are with shopping. Let's be that efficient with our self-growth, our self-evolution, our self-care. Everything on the outside of your life is a reflection of what's going on inside. So take care of the inside, man, and your whole outside will change.
Yes. And do it in a timely fashion so that you're not spending 12 years suppressing all these things. I always tell people, don't do what I did. Don't do it the way that I did it. Learn differently. Let's move forward together. Because even my book, I wrote a book about my experience with my dad and my grief, and it's called Giving My Heart Room to Breathe. Wow. So even that title was just like, that's exactly how I felt. Like I had to realize that nobody was coming to save me. I need to do the work. I need to just take everything away from how people identify me or what people think I should be and all these things, and just discover who I am and what makes me happy and spend my life doing that. And then everything started to,
Can I tell you, you look beautiful. When you just said that,
thank you.
I saw the little girl in you, and I saw the confidence and the innocence and the trust when you talked about just listening to you instead of all the expectations of others with their unclean, non-worked with consciousness projected onto you.
Because it took me a long time to realize that. And it wasn't until I realized that, I have this bird cage behind me. I don't know if you can see it. And I always talk about how I felt that I was, like a bird stuck in a cage. And this particular cage, I was fiddling around with it one day, and I was having one of my depressive moments. And I realized that this cage in particular opened from the inside. I was like, is this? I was like, maybe this was like a bad factory made, like, I'm like, what? And it has lock on it. And it opened it two different ways, the top and the side, but from the inside. And I'm like, that's what I have to do. I have to learn how to open myself, and let myself out. And once I was out and the door was and once I was out and the door was open, I was okay going back in, going back out. I did whatever hell I wanted, but it was just a matter of waiting for other people to tell me how I should be living, and now I don't do that anymore. And that's what I'm trying to teach, because it is, I know you didn't like my words of it was a waste of 12 years, but I really did feel in that moment, I learned a lot. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have gone through this experience. So I learned a tremendous amount of time of things, but I also felt like a lot of my life went, in that moment.
Hey, let me help you. Self-forgiveness helps open up the heart chakra too. So I wonder what it would look like if you had even more acceptance for that 12 years not being wasted. But what would it look like, Nelia, if we could speed up your trajectory and make up for that 12 years? Like, honestly, I know that I look at the people who are receiving my work, and I'm like, that took me 5 years, and they're getting to that point too. And the whole thing that took me to Asia was me asking, how can I get more robust results on behalf of my clients who are already getting good results? And so it's happening. So there is a way, whether it's with me or whatever, what I want for you is to have that 12 years, like where you're going from today, like they're up to unleash the possibilities of making up for that 12 years with how much you shine and progress forward from here on in. So that
thank you. Yes, absolutely. Because I wouldn't never feel the way that I feel now and have the purpose that I have now, have not been through that, Yeah, absolutely. But I just wanted to share that birdcage analogy with you, because
I love that. You have the key.
I have it all the time in my mind, and it's something I talk about a lot on the show, because it was this moment. I was just like, wow, I have all the power, all of it. Nobody's going to come and save me. I need to do this myself. Let's figure out the best way. And we talk so much about giving on the show because I love, and I really do feel that a lot of the healing helps through giving, but more and more I'm talking about learning to receive. So I really appreciate you talking about that, because it is a balance. You can't, if you only give, you will feel empty after a while. You will feel like you have nothing more to give. So it has to be a balance, absolutely, for it to be, wholly, healthy all the way around, and to come for full circle. So yeah, so I appreciate you speaking about that, because we have, as women too, we have a very hard time learning how to receive, because we're not supposed to do that, and so
nurturers.
Yeah.
But there's so many brothers stepping up now. You're welcome. It's my honor to do that. And frankly, it's one of the things that I find myself doing the most of with women is reorienting the compass to where, so there's a Qigong movement, and it's called the pushing and pulling of the waves. It's just for those of you who are listening only audio and you can't see this, I'm stepping out on one foot in the front. My palms are facing away from me. Elbows are bent. Now I'm all the way extended. I'm dropping my wrists. I'm now starting to pull back onto my back foot, bringing my arms back in towards my chest. So now I'm stepping out again. My palms are facing away from me, pushing of the waves, dropping my wrists, and now I'm stepping back onto my back foot, pulling of the waves. And for me, more than yoga, Qigong has taught me basic energy flows of life philosophies, because I was already thinking that way when I learned Qigong and have been teaching Qigong. So if you look at this, I'm creating space in front of me. Nature abhors a vacuum. If all I'm doing is given, what else can get in?
You got to make your container bigger so that more things can get into it, right? Like, I love that balance of the movement of what you were doing. That's amazing.
And you can just work with deservingness, because that's usually the next place to go. I don't deserve to receive. I'm supposed to give. You know, all that.
Yeah, life is made up of both parts equally, honestly. You know, life is nothing without giving also. For me, that just helps me stay grounded, and it helps my mental health and everything. But only giving can feel very tiring.
And drying.
Balance.
The juice gets dried, like a sponge that has no water in it.
Yeah. And when you give genuinely, it's because you do know how to receive. You know, you're doing it like from your heart, right? So that's the best part of giving, honestly.
Yeah. Another way to say that too is when we're channeling, when I teach my students, when we're giving the light, it's coming through us. So we're receiving it too, as we're channeling it on behalf of a client. It's just a divine, neat trick.
Yeah. Win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure having you here and getting to meet you and experiencing this with you. Pardon?
Likewise. Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Now, okay, so what's the name of your website? I know we've talked a little bit about it today, but what is the name of it? Where can we find you?
The easiest way, I think, is Vibrational UPgrade. My name is with one L, Alison, and then the middle initial J, and then the last name's Kay. So AlisonJK.com is another way. You can use that full name on Amazon. I have 4 books there. Make sure that you use the middle initial, because there's an Alison K without the J that writes about something really different. It's not pornography. It's like other stuff. And then a Vibrational UPgrade is a free Facebook group that I'm in almost daily. My Vibrational UPgrade practitioners are in there. And so this is a really good vibe, the community, and there's over 4,000 strong. That's the Facebook group. I have a YouTube channel with my full name. So there you have it. Audible. I have one book on Audible, and it's people love it. So it's a great way to dive in. Reasonable Dragons.
Oh, great. I've heard of it. Yes.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, I've been seeing some of your stuff. So yes, I've heard a little bit about it.
That makes me feel honored.
No, that's
there you go.
Yeah. I want to ask you one question that I sometimes ask some of my guests. I think, so in your lifetime, what would you say has been the biggest gift that you have given to yourself that made you feel better about who you are, that made you more in tune with yourself? What is the one thing that you're so glad that you opened up to and a gift to yourself? Many times we don't. I know you're very in tune with yourself, but even at a younger age, perhaps when you were just starting, can you think of one thing that just really meant everything?
Jesus, not one thing, but one of the things that opened up so much was I was a classroom teacher and administrator in the public school system, doing the energy medicine sessions, holistic health and wellness sessions on the side. And one Saturday I was working with a client, and she was in like a 3rd or 4th series of 10 sessions. And we were both really pleased with the results. I talked about this a little bit. I had my hands over her abdomen, and I looked up and I'm like, universe, how can I increase these results? How can I get more robust results on behalf of my clients? This happened around the same time on another Saturday morning. I don't think it was the same day. Could have been though. where I was looking at my checkbook pre-digital banking and was not thrilled. I had a master's at that point and public school teacher salary, and looking at the and all I had were basic needs like roof, car. I did want organic produce. I did want a massage per week because I thought that was preventative health 101 and 102. And I wasn't happy with the cage I felt like I was looking at being in for decades. I wasn't happy with this reality's definition of what I was worth. I put my middle finger up to that and asked what else is possible. And so I found out about the international school system within a month from a colleague synchronistically talking about it. And so I did what I had to do to go to the place where all the school heads from all over the world were coming, and we were all candidates going and had the interviews, got offers around the world, and chose Asia, specifically Taiwan, because I considered that to be the seat of understanding subtle energy and consciousness, but still operating from it today. So that whole, that slew of different reasons you just heard for that.
Yes.
The feeling of putting my middle finger to, this is your definition of reality. This is your projection of what's important. This is your projection of what's not important. Sorry, see ya. It doesn't work.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it because it sounds like you said yes to yourself.
Yeah. And how I know what I know is possible, what I sensed, didn't know factually, but sensed was possible, much more beyond caged living.
Yes. And that moment must have been exhilarating for you. What a gift. What a gift that you allowed yourself that. That's amazing. That's great. I love it. Thank you. And
that's a good question.
Yeah, we need to do more of that. We need to find out, or not, stick up for ourselves and what we really need, and forget about what people, who says you have to do all these things in order? Like, do what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah, I've never been really good at listening to the crowd. I fought my team. Yeah. Well, I mean, God bless my dad more than my mom. God bless my mom, but she had an easier time. That came out weird. My dad had a little bit less of an easy time with I must do things according to my intuition and path. You cannot project your understanding of the world and how it works onto me and then expect me to just follow along like a robot. I need space to make my own choices. Give it to me. Sorry, can't have it. You're a teen. I know what's better for you. Sorry. Yes. So that back and forth of the rebellious. Yeah. I mean,
it's amazing. It takes bravery, and it takes.
Nell, yeah. It takes cojones and steel at times to stick to what you believe in and follow your own intuition. It really does. But man, does it pay off and feel really good.
Because you're going across, against everything society tells you, and you're going against the grain, and you're going against all these people, you get opposition, right? What do you mean? What do you do? Nobody understands. But you don't have to do it for anybody else. That's one thing I learned when my father passed away, is how short life is. And in that moment, I promised myself I wouldn't live for other people anymore. Nor
for your dad's death.
Yes.
That was your dad's path. Your life may not be, and likely isn't going to be the same length as his. It'll be longer. That was his path.
Yes. So it's just so freeing when but you have to be open. You have to be open to learning and to be a lifelong student and learning about all these things. Yeah. Some people might think it's foo-foo, or people are like, but the more you learn about it, the more you have an open mind, the more you'll find perhaps that it is the one thing that will really get you through, just keep an open mind, everybody, if this is new to you. Thank you, Alison.
One last thing, if this is new to you, then know that over half of the rest of the world operates from this knowing and doesn't question it just because it's invisible. In fact, over half of the rest of the world understands that what holds more power is the invisible. So it's not frou-frou. It just might be to our culture, which is why my mission is what it is. If people only knew, more about the science and the power behind consciousness and subtle energy, there would be so much thriving and so much less suffering in the West. And you had your interiorly only opening from the interior only cage tell you that. It's the same message. It's internal that holds the power.
I mean, we could talk forever, but it's like even like getting out of your comfort zone and traveling to these beautiful places and these places that practice these things, all the time, like Asia, and you just feel different when you're there. You just have a sense of what's wrong with the rest of the world. Like everybody get on board, whereas here you kind of have to feel like you're convincing people, right? I don't know. I just think
No,
it's so much more.
I don't.
No.
No, because they have to convince each other of stuff over there in a different way. They don't do the lecturing, finger pointing thing we do in North America quite so much. And I don't ever I don't ever talk to resistance. If you're in resistance, then
You're not ready. Yeah.
Or that's where you are and cool. And so let's talk. What jokes have you heard recently?
Yes.
Not my job to fix anyone. It all is initiated by everybody's own choice and everybody's own readiness. I just would love for people to become more proactive and not need crisis or suffering in order to get them to look at their internal world.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
Thank goodness for that. Thank you, Alison, so much. And thanks for explaining.
Alison, welcome. Thank you for the fun and the laughter at the end here. It was can be a serious topic.
It can, just life can be serious, but thank you so much.
We can break it up. That was.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.